Fluent, period. What if I told you that most English learners are studying way too much and still learning the wrong things? Not because they are lazy, not because they are bad at languages, but because nobody ever explained one simple truth about everyday English. And once you understand this truth, the way you study English will completely change. Because here's the strange part. You can study grammar for 5 years, memorize thousands of words, watch hundreds of lessons, and still freeze when someone asks you a simple question like, "So, what do you do for work?" Meanwhile, another person studies less, knows less grammar, has a smaller vocabulary, but somehow sounds more natural. Why? What are they doing differently? That's exactly what we're going to talk about today. And trust me, by the end of this video, you may completely rethink the way you learn English forever. Because the biggest secret about fluency is not what most people think. And honestly, it has almost nothing to do with studying harder. So stay with me, because near the end of this video, I'm going to show you the one thing that separates people who know English from people who actually speak it naturally. And once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. Now let's start with a problem every English learner has. There's just too much English. Seriously, open a dictionary and you'll find hundreds of thousands of words. Open YouTube and you'll see millions of videos. Every app tells you to memorize more vocabulary. Every course promises fluency. Every teacher says something different. One says grammar is everything. Another says grammar is useless. One says you need 10,000 words. Another says you only need 1,000. So your brain starts asking the same question over and over. Where do I even begin? And this feeling is dangerous, because many learners become overwhelmed before they even start. They feel like fluency is a giant mountain. Too high, too complicated, too impossible. But here's the good news. English is not random chaos. There are patterns. And once you understand these patterns, learning becomes much easier. Let me show you something fascinating. In English, some words are used constantly. Others are used almost never. Think about words like the, is, go, want, have you. You hear them everywhere. Every single day. Thousands of times. Now compare that to words like magnificent, extraordinary, astonishing, beautiful words, but not very common in normal daily conversations. And this leads us to something incredibly important. The most common words in English make up most of everyday communication. That means you do not need to know every word in English to understand real conversations. In fact, a relatively small group of words appears again and again and again. This is why beginners sometimes understand more than they expect. Even native speakers repeat the same structures constantly. And this should make you feel relieved, because fluency is not about learning everything. It's about learning what people actually use. But here's where many learners make a huge mistake. They think, okay, so I'll just memorize the most common words. Sounds logical, right? But there's a problem. Words alone are not enough. Because language is not just vocabulary. Language is combinations. Let me explain. Imagine you know these words. Take care, easy words. Very common. But together, take care. Now it becomes a natural expression. Something real people say every day. Or think about this. You can know the words, make decision, but native speakers usually say, make a decision. Not do a decision. Not create a decision. Not build a decision. Even though those words technically make sense. And this is exactly where many learners struggle. They know the words, but they don't know the combinations. And everyday English is full of combinations. Tiny patterns, chunks, expressions, phrases, pieces of language people memorize naturally without thinking. That's why native speakers speak so fast. They are not building every sentence from zero. They are pulling ready-made pieces from memory, almost like Lego blocks. And once you understand this, something important happens. You stop treating English like mathematics. Because many students learn English like this: subject plus verb plus object. Formula, rule, structure. And yes, grammar matters. But real communication is messier than that. Much messier. Let's look at an example. Imagine someone says, I got dressed. Simple, natural, normal. But technically, someone could also say, I placed clothing onto my body. Grammatically correct. Makes sense. But nobody talks like that. Why? Because language is not just correctness. Language is social agreement. It's what people naturally accept as normal. And this changes everything. Because fluency is not about creating infinite sentences. It's about choosing the sentences people actually use. That's a completely different skill. And honestly, this is why some advanced learners still sound unnatural. They understand grammar perfectly, but they build sentences no real person would say. It's like using perfect puzzle pieces to create the wrong picture. Now here's something even more interesting. Native speakers break grammar rules all the time. All the time. They say things like, me and my friend went, ain't no way. Gonna, wanna, gotcha, let me know. And guess what? Other native speakers understand them perfectly. Because communication is more important than perfection. Now, does that mean grammar is useless? No. Grammar matters. But grammar alone does not create fluency. And this is a huge mindset shift. Because many learners secretly believe, if I just study enough grammar, one day I'll magically become fluent. But language doesn't work like that. You can memorize swimming techniques for years and still drown the moment you enter the water. Because eventually, you must actually swim. And English works the same way. You must experience real language, real conversations, real listening, real reactions, real communication. That's where fluency begins. And this leads us to another important truth most learners ignore. Fluency is not speed. Some people speak fast and sound confusing. Some people speak slowly and sound amazing. Fluency is not about talking like a machine gun. It's about comfort, flow, confidence, connection. You know someone is fluent when they can express themselves naturally without fighting with every sentence. Even if they pause sometimes, even if they make mistakes, even if their accent is strong. And honestly, many learners need to hear this. Because perfectionism destroys progress. Some students are terrified of making mistakes. So they wait, and wait, and wait. I'll speak when my grammar is perfect. I'll start conversations when my vocabulary is bigger. I'll practice later. But later never comes. And meanwhile, another learner speaks every day with broken English and improves much faster. Why? Because language grows through use, not through hiding. Think about children. Children make thousands of mistakes. Thousands. But they keep communicating. And slowly, naturally, patterns become automatic. That's how humans learn language. Not through fear. Through repetition and interaction. Now here's where things become really interesting. Most everyday English is predictable. Native speakers repeat the same expressions constantly. Think about how often people say, how's it going? No worries. I'm just kidding. That makes sense. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, honestly, by the way, these expressions appear everywhere. Movies, podcasts, conversations, interviews, YouTube videos. And the more you hear them, the more automatic they become. That's why listening is so powerful. Not because you memorize every word, but because your brain starts recognizing patterns. Your brain begins predicting language. And this prediction is one of the biggest secrets behind fluency. Fluent speakers are not translating constantly. They are recognizing familiar chunks. That's much faster. Imagine driving a car. At first, every movement feels difficult. Mirrors, pedals, steering wheel, signals. Everything requires conscious thought. But later, you drive automatically because repetition created patterns in your brain. English works the same way. And this is why passive studying alone often fails. You can read about driving forever, but eventually you need the road. Now let's talk about something that might surprise you. A lot of language learning content online is designed to keep you studying, not communicating. That's a hard truth. Many apps make you feel productive because you completed lessons. You collected points. You unlocked levels. You memorized random vocabulary. But can you actually hold a conversation? Sometimes not really, because knowing about English is different from using English. And this creates a dangerous illusion. You feel busy, but not fluent. You feel informed, but not comfortable. And many learners stay trapped in this cycle for years. Watching videos, reading grammar explanations, memorizing lists, but never truly interacting with the language. And interaction changes everything, because real communication forces your brain to adapt. When someone asks you a question in real time, your brain starts building connections much faster. That pressure creates growth, and no textbook can fully replace that experience. Now, don't misunderstand me. Studying is important. Grammar is useful. Vocabulary matters. But they are tools, not the final goal. The real goal is communication. Always. And the learners who improve fastest usually understand this early. They stop asking, "How can I study more?" and start asking, "How can I use English more?" That question changes everything. Maybe it's listening to podcasts while walking. Maybe it's commenting on YouTube videos in English. Maybe it's joining online communities. Maybe it's talking to yourself. Maybe it's shadowing movie dialogue. Maybe it's voice messages with language partners. The method matters less than consistency, because language is built through contact. Daily contact. Now here's another mistake many learners make. They obsess over rare words. Big words. Complicated words. Words even native speakers rarely use, because they think complicated English sounds intelligent. But natural English is usually simple. Very simple. In fact, native speakers constantly use basic words in flexible ways. Think about the word get. Get up. Get in. Get out. Get over it. Get ready. Get home. Get better. Get back. One simple word. Hundreds of real uses. And mastering these common words is much more powerful than memorizing fancy vocabulary nobody uses. This is why some learners know difficult words like photosynthesis, but struggle with simple conversations. Because everyday English lives inside simple patterns, not academic vocabulary. And honestly, this should motivate you, because fluency may be closer than you think. You do not need perfect English. You need functional English, natural English, connected English. Now let me tell you something that changed the way many people learn languages. Your brain remembers emotion better than information. Think about songs. You remember lyrics because music creates emotion. Think about movies. You remember scenes because stories create emotion. Think about embarrassing moments. You never forget them. Why? Emotion strengthens memory. And this is exactly why real communication matters so much. When you laugh during a conversation, when you feel nervous, when you tell a story, when you understand a joke, your brain attaches emotion to the language. That makes the language stick, much more than isolated vocabulary lists. And this is also why people who move abroad often improve quickly, not because they suddenly become geniuses, but because language becomes emotional and necessary. Now here's something important. You do not need to live in another country to create this effect. The internet changed everything. Today you can surround yourself with English every single day. Podcasts, YouTube, games, communities, Discord servers, movies, TikTok, music, books, audiobooks, conversations. The opportunities are endless. But there's one condition. You must stop treating English like a school subject and start treating it like a real language. Something alive, something human, because language is deeply connected to people. And honestly, this is where many traditional methods fail. They remove the human side. They turn English into tests, rules, exercises, scores. But real language is messy, funny, emotional, cultural, human. And the closer your learning gets to real human communication, the faster your progress usually becomes. Now let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed that some phrases feel instantly natural, while others feel technically correct but strange? That's because language has invisible social rules. Native speakers simply feel what sounds right. And how do they develop that feeling? Exposure. Massive exposure. Years of hearing patterns repeatedly. That's why input matters so much. Listening, reading, watching, not once, repeatedly. Your brain slowly absorbs the rhythm of English, the melody, the combinations, the habits, and eventually things start sounding wrong automatically. Not because you memorized rules, but because your brain built intuition. This is exactly how native speakers operate most of the time. And you can build this intuition too. But it takes contact with real language, not artificial examples only. Now, before we continue, if you're enjoying this video and you want more content that helps you understand real English in a simple and natural way, subscribe to Fluent, period. Because this channel is not about making English look harder. It's about helping you finally understand how real fluency actually works. And trust me, the next point might be the most important part of this entire video. Because there's one thing almost every successful language learner eventually understands. Fluency is not a moment. It's not a magical day where suddenly everything becomes perfect. There's no secret ceremony, no final level, no dramatic transformation overnight. Fluency is gradual. One day, you understand a joke without subtitles. One day, you answer without translating. One day, you realize you've been listening for 20 minutes completely in English. One day, you stop panicking during conversations. And these tiny moments slowly build confidence. That's fluency, not perfection, progressive comfort. And honestly, many learners quit right before these breakthroughs happen. Because progress in language learning is often invisible at first. Like going to the gym. You don't notice change every day. But after months, huge difference. And English works exactly the same way. Small daily exposure creates massive long-term results. Now, let's return to the biggest idea of this video. Why do some people become natural speakers faster than others? Usually because they focus on connection instead of control. They stop trying to control every sentence perfectly and start focusing on meaning, communication, interaction. And yes, they still study, but they also use the language constantly. That combination is powerful. Input plus real use. That's where transformation happens. And this brings us to the most important truth of all. You cannot buy fluency. You can buy courses, apps, books, teachers, lessons, but nobody can buy practice for you. Nobody can listen for you. Nobody can communicate for you. Nobody can build those brain connections except you. And strangely enough, that's actually good news. Because it means fluency is not reserved for gifted people. It belongs to consistent people, curious people, patient people, people willing to engage with the language daily, even imperfectly, especially imperfectly, because mistakes are not proof that you're failing. They are proof that you're participating. And participation is everything. So if you remember only one thing from this video, remember this. Everyday English is not built by memorizing endless rules. It's built by experiencing real language again and again until patterns become natural. That is the real shortcut, not avoiding practice, but embracing it, not hiding from mistakes, but learning through them, not chasing perfection, but building connection. Because at the end of the day, language is not really about words. It's about people, always people, people sharing ideas, stories, jokes, feelings, experiences. And the moment you stop treating English like a school exam and start treating it like human connection, everything begins to change. So start small. Listen daily. Read daily. Speak daily. Even if it feels uncomfortable. Even if you make mistakes. Even if you feel slow. Because every fluent speaker you admire once sounded exactly like you. Confused. Nervous. Unsure. But they kept going. And you can too. See you in the next video.